Tennis is one of the fastest and most demanding sports that there is. The time that it takes to make contact with a ball is between 2 and 5 one-thousandths of a second. The calculation of the moment of impact, swing preparation, backswing and racket acceleration has to be coordinated within a matter of seconds. The sweet spot, about the size of a pack of cigarettes, is in the center of the racket in which the ball needs to be struck.
Look and Learn.
Look and Learn is the name of our new innovative method for learning a sporting movement. In order to learn the proper technique, you will need to be able to visualize the movements that are needed to execute a proper stroke. Previous cameras only captured 25 frames per second, but we use high-speed cameras that can capture close to 4,000 frames per second. With the help of this new technology, we're able to bring details to light that have never been seen before. If you analyze the swing techniques of today's top players, you can recognize distinct individual pre-swing routines, but at the moment that the ball is struck, the differences become minimal and very much alike. With the help of these high-speed cameras, we have the possibility to show you the most important parts of the technique with such precision that you will be able to totally understand and perfectly visualize each stroke. The more that you visualize yourself making a perfect swing, the easier it will be to make that swing in reality. Complex and dynamic movements require an exact thought process prior to the actual execution of each movement. The main goal of our interactive DVD is to pass this information on to all of you. Our goal is to help you understand the most important stroke techniques and each individual required movement. In doing so, you will develop a basis for successful learning and optimize your stroke technique. The forehand has become an extreme weapon in today's modern tennis.
Top
players can just about stroke winners from every position on the court. How to recognize a forehand: a distinct forehand grip, an open stance, the rotation of the upper body, and an early moment of impact. The moment of impact is as important to the forehand stroke as to all other strokes. Early recognition, leg work, and the whole preparation of a stroke leads up to one sole purpose: a perfect moment of impact. The moment of contact is the moment in which the ball makes contact with the strings and consists of only 3 to 5 one-thousandths of a second. This fraction of a second is much too fast for a human being to consciously influence a perfect movement. That is why routine and perfect preparation is the key to a successful stroke. If you closely observe a forehand stroke, it is easy to see that your arms, torso, shoulder and legs must work together as one. A major part of the energy needed to produce acceleration comes from your legs and torso. This is where the extension of your legs, together with upper body rotation, plays a major role. The key to a good stroke technique is to be able to successfully release stored muscle energy into a fluid stroke when striking the ball. Your grip at the moment of impact should influence a proper racket position, which in turn influences the direction and control of the ball. At impact, your hand position should be natural and behind the racket grip. Due to the given fact that the impact position of each stroke is known, the following method can be used for gripping the racket. Place your racket in your left hand and take your intended impact position. Now, wrap your hand around the handle and angle your elbow as shown in the picture. Now you have a perfect forehand grip. Naturally, there are numerous variations to this grip technique, but we don't want to get into that. Technically speaking, this is a very good grip and a great starting position.
Die Ausholbewegung
The
beginnt,
backswing begins when you start to swing the racket over your shoulder with your left hand, while transferring your weight to your right
das
leg
Gewicht
and
auf
opening
das
your
rechte
wrist.
Bein verlagerst und das Handgelenk hinten öffnest.
This is a
Das
perfect
ist eine
starting
perfekte
position.
Vorbereitung.
The initiation of the stroke begins with the turning of the shoulders. Make sure that your forward shoulder is pointing toward the oncoming ball. This can be compared to dipping into your knees, which lowers your center of gravity. The coiling of the large muscle groups together with dipping into your knees produces the energy needed for the acceleration of your racket. The foot position should be open in a standard situation of a ground line stroke. Your feet in this open position should be next to each other and parallel to the ground line. All of today's world-class players use this open position to achieve maximum racket acceleration.
Und aus dieser Position
Now you can
beginnst
start
du
your
dann
stroke from this position by making a swinging motion from back to front in anticipation of striking the ball.
Du triffst den Ball hier vorne
You
vor
should
der
strike the
vorderen
ball in front of
Hüfte
your forward
und
hip
schwingst
and follow
so
through
lang
as
wie
long as
möglich
possible.
den Ball nach, bis in die linke Hand wieder ankommt. Wunderbar. Und du hast gemerkt, wie sich das Körpergewicht vom rechten auf das linke Bein verlagert.
An upright upper body position should be maintained throughout this phase. In doing so, you will stay totally balanced and have a good feeling. The stroke is initiated by the extension of your back leg, which then merges together with the upper body rotation. Furthermore, the impulse of shoulder, arm, and wrist leads to a whip effect, or acceleration of the racket onto the ball. This chain of movements must be coordinated so that the individual impulses can merge together as a fluid bodily movement without any hesitations. Your weight must be transferred from your back foot to your front foot during the stroke. This allows for a longer extension of your follow-through, which in turn creates more energy and helps you strike the ball with more precision. During this stroke, the racket should make a dropping movement and your wrist should be open so that the underside of the handle is facing the oncoming ball. The arm used for the stroke should be slightly bent as you take your backswing and remain close to your body on the forward swing. During this phase, the handle should be relaxed in your hand. Your forearm muscles should also be relaxed, and your wrist should stay open as long as possible. The necessary placement of your wrist shortly before striking the ball should be a reflex action. Now you can focus all of your concentration on the oncoming ball, and gripping the handle will be an automatic reflex. The non-striking hand plays an important role for perfect timing. It should be facing toward the ball until shortly before impact. In doing so, your upper body will not start to turn too soon. By striking the ball with a steep forward-upward movement, a so-called forward spin can be induced onto the ball. The rotation of the forearm shortly before impact induces the lifting movement of the racket. This initiates the acceleration of the racket through the moment of impact, thus producing more forward spin on the ball. After striking the ball, the racket should be swung over your left shoulder and your elbow should be facing toward your intended stroke direction. The overall movement of the head of the racket can be described as a fluid motion without any deacceleration or acceleration movements. The single-handed backhand is technically more difficult than a two-handed backhand and much harder to learn. How to recognize a single-handed backhand: a distinct continental grip or strong backhand grip. The stroke takes place from a sideways position. The moment of impact takes place way in front of the body, and most importantly, the racket must follow in the direction of the intended stroke during the follow-through for as long as possible. The correct grip for the backhand can be found just as easily as the grip for the forehand by using the method of feeling the perfect moment of impact. Take a correct body position to one side and hold the racket with your left hand in the position needed to strike the ball properly. Now grip the handle from above with an extended elbow as shown in the photo. Now you have a perfect backhand grip. As soon as you realize that the oncoming ball will be coming toward your backhand side, you should bring the racket as soon as possible into position with the help of your non-striking hand and take your backhand grip. During this stroke, you should definitely use your other hand to help bring your upper body into the right position so that your shoulders are facing the oncoming ball.
Und jetzt setzt das rechte
Now the right
Bein
leg should be
vorne
moved in this
auf,
position.
macht einen großen Schritt
Take a
nach
long
vorne,
diagonal
diagonal.
step to the front.
Genau. Wunderbar.
Let me have your racket for a second and keep that position. That down there is about 1 racket length. If you take that stance, your body will be able to maintain perfect balance. The arm used for the stroke should be swung into position as close to the body as possible, and the head of the racket should be close to your non-striking shoulder. Energy will be stored up as you coil your shoulders.
Und aus der Phase beginnt dann der eigentliche Schlag. Das bedeutet, du kommst hier nach vorne.
You will be able to start your actual stroke from this position. That means that you should be moving toward the net. Your left shoulder should stay behind, and you will strike the ball during this phase of the stroke in front of your forward hip.
Ungefähr in Hüfthöhe, das ist perfekt.
The racket is released by the supporting hand and led forward. The head of the racket should make a dropping motion prior to the moment of impact, where it should then make an upward forward motion which influences forward spin on the ball. During this backswing, your arm should be extended so that it is totally extended at the moment of impact. Your weight distribution during this phase should be on the back leg and should be transferred to the front leg during the stroke. A stretching or extension of the right leg is necessary to initiate the beginning of the stroke. This movement takes place just before the moment of impact. Make sure that you maintain a low center of gravity, otherwise you could already be upright before the ball even reaches you. A major difference in comparison to the forehand is that the upper body stays still, while the hips maintain the same position during the backswing, stroke, and follow-through. The non-striking arm initiates a rhythmic counter movement. The racket should stay close to your body during the forward movement, while the end of the handle should briefly be facing the ball prior to the moment of impact. The moment of impact should take place way in front of the hips. The head of the racket should be parallel to the net. Try to swing the racket as long as possible in the intended direction of your stroke. The muscles in your arm should stay relaxed throughout your backswing. Swing, and not power, is what differentiates good technique. The grip should be relaxed and not cramped. The necessary position of the wrist shortly before the moment of impact should be a reflex, so that you can totally concentrate on the oncoming ball without having to think about what muscles have to be used. You should be focusing on the moment of impact and maintain your visual contact on that position until shortly after striking the ball. In doing so, you'll be able to maintain perfect balance and stay in complete control of your stroke. In order to maintain better balance, your non-striking arm should make a counter movement. The two-handed backhand is becoming more and more popular. More than 80% of today's players use both hands. What's the reason for this? Children are starting at an earlier age, and they have to use both hands to swing the racket. A two-handed backhand stroke is like a forehand from the opposite side, and it is very important that the non-striking hand leads the racket through impact. What are the advantages of a two-handed backhand? You can strike the ball very early, and as it rises, you can play more aggressively and be able to execute better returns. During this stroke, you should hold the racket in the position needed for a perfect moment of impact and then grip the handle accordingly. Your left hand should grip the handle like a forehand, and with your right hand, you have the option of using the backhand or forehand grip. A two-handed backhand is like a forehand using the non-striking hand. Try to make a forehand stroke with your left hand. Now, take your starting position, and we will try this together. Your preparation for this stroke begins by turning your shoulder and standing in the following position. This stroke is initiated by the turning of the shoulder and making sure that your right shoulder as a right-hander is pointing toward the oncoming ball. In doing so, the racket and your arms will automatically reach the correct position. In coiling the upper body together with the lower body, the position of your feet should be shoulder width. Your knees should be bent with your weight on your back foot. During this stroke, your forward shoulder should be facing toward the net, and you have stored up enough energy from your coiling movement to be able to execute the proper stroke. The impulse that you get when you begin your stroke causes you to transfer your weight toward your front foot, and at the same moment your upper body begins to rotate. The forward rotation of your upper body forces your arms and your racket toward the ball. The third step is to follow through as far as possible toward the intended direction of your stroke and over your shoulder. You will see that the backside of your body makes a great forward movement toward the net. The moment of impact takes place in front of your body, and the racket should be parallel to the net. Your left hand, the one that is above, brings the feeling into the stroke, and the hand that is underneath the grip stabilizes your movement. Now, try to make the whole movement all by yourself. Follow each movement step by step. Step 1, take a step to the front. Step 2, step 3. That's perfect. The serve is the only stroke that cannot be influenced by your opponent, and the only one where you have enough time to fully prepare. This is very difficult to learn because both of your arms must move simultaneously and must be coordinated so that you can execute this demanding stroke without making mistakes. The tossing of the ball is the key to the success of a good serve. A correct grip can be found by following this method. Take your stance facing the net and place your racket in the position needed to strike the ball correctly with your non-striking hand. This position is only a few centimeters in front of your body and on an imaginary line over your right toe. By gripping the handle as shown, you should have a great starting position for your serve.
Okay. Das Wichtigste ist eine gute
The most important part of this stroke is to have a perfect starting position. Take this position exactly. The front foot should be pointing toward the right net post, and your right foot should be slightly back and parallel to the ground line. If you take this stance, then you should have a good feeling for your balance and a sturdy stance. Swing both arms apart when tossing the ball and simultaneously start your backswing. Your left arm should only be moved by your shoulder and should stay completely extended as you throw the ball. You should release the ball at about eye level and make sure that it's thrown straight up into the air.
Wenn du so stehst, arbeiten die beiden Arme arbeiten synchron zusammen. Das
Both of your
bedeutet,
arms can make a synchronized movement, which means that they should both make a downward movement and then an upward movement.
das
that is
wichtig
important
für
for the
den Anfang.
beginning.
Mach das mal. Wir machen mal zusammen und go. Sehr gut. Und während hier
As your tossing arm makes an upward movement, your right arm should make a movement to the rear and as low as possible. Your right elbow should be pointing upward like this. This is where your power is coming from. Take a look. There, exactly. In that position down there is where your power comes from. One more time, more firmly.
Okay.
The striking arm should be extremely bent, and your elbow should be in the extended angle of your shoulder. The elbow should now make an upward motion similar to a throwing movement, and the head of the racket should fall back so that the end of the handle is pointing toward the ball.
Und der nächste Schritt
And the next step is that you understand that the ball must be struck at the highest possible point. Look up into the air and try to make this movement with your wrist and underarm. That's very important. This is where the dynamic comes from for the serve. This is where the ball gets its acceleration. Extreme racket acceleration can be reached by a rotation of the underarm to the outside, also known as pronation. The perfect moment of impact takes place at the highest point, which must also be in front of your body. Your body position at the moment of impact should be totally extended. Your eyes should stay fixed on the ball until it's left the racket. This guarantees that your upper body is totally extended so that you can reach the highest possible position for striking the ball. To be able to achieve better balance, your head should remain still and maintain an upright position. You should make a downward movement into your knees when tossing the ball, and your upper body should twist down into your lower body. This stored energy will be transferred into your shoulder and then into your arm as you extend your legs and rotate your upper body toward the net. As you slide your hips, you will have produced the so-called coil effect or bow tension. The The whole body should follow in the direction of the ball that you have just struck, and the racket should be swung along the left side of your body during the follow-through. The difference between the ground strokes and the volley is that during the volley, the ball is struck in mid-air and very close to the net. This stroke is very demanding and requires quick reflexes, mobility, and great balance. The characteristics are a continental grip, which can be used for both the forehand and the backhand volley, a moment of impact position way in front of your body, and an open stance. During the volley, you should use a very short backswing and follow-through. In extreme situations, the volley should only be a blocking movement. Because you don't have much time to execute a volley, the so-called continental grip should be used. This is a type of universal grip which can be used for both the forehand and the backhand volley. Hold the racket in front of your body so that you are looking directly at the rim of the racket. If you grip the handle as demonstrated in the film, you will have a correct grip position. Starting position at the net, a wide stance, a little bit wider, low center of gravity, your weight in your thighs. If you analyze the overall movement of the volley, you will see that the backswing is very short and that the racket makes a forward, downward movement when striking the ball. Only a short backswing and a short follow-through is needed for the volley in comparison to the longer movements needed for the normal stroke. Hold the racket in front of your body so that the tip is pointing upwards. From this neutral position, you will be able to react just as quickly to both a forehand and a backhand volley. A lower center of gravity is needed to strike a volley that only needs to fly just over the net. This position can be reached by bending your knees a bit more than normal, similar to the ready position of a soccer goalkeeper awaiting a penalty kick. Your head and body should maintain an upright position. This is the only way to be able to maintain perfect balance during the stroke. Due to the fact that the oncoming balls are usually traveling very fast as they cross the net, your backswing, as already mentioned, must be very short. The racket should be swung by using your forearm and to a maximum height level with your upper body. Your shoulder should make very little movement. The striking arm should maintain a slightly bent position and stay close to your body so that the center of gravity is behind your striking hand. Start your swing preparation by lifting the racket over your shoulder with your left hand. Your wrist should be firm, and you should form a 90-degree angle between your forearm and the racket. You will definitely need this when the oncoming balls strike your racket, because the stability of the connection between your arm and the racket is most important. The next step is to make a simultaneous forward movement with your right leg and the racket, and to strike the ball as far in front of your body as possible. A 90-degree angle should be formed between the racket and your forearm. so that the tip of the racket is pointed upwards. An upright wrist position guarantees the correct position of the racket at the moment of impact and is necessary for fast oncoming balls. The stroke takes place together with a step toward the ball. The oncoming ball receives its direction from the harmony of this step and stroke movement. During a forehand volley, your last step must be taken with your left leg. When executing a backhand volley, it's taken with your right leg. The return is very important because this is used during every exchange. Nevertheless, the return is the least systematically practiced stroke. It is very demanding and requires quick reflexes and is dependent upon the speed of the oncoming serve. Starting position during the return, minimum shoulder width stance, your weight in your thighs, very good. You should start your preparation from this position and closely observe exactly when your opponent starts with his serve. At the exact moment the ball leaves your opponent's hand, take a quick step from this position toward the net. Your feet must be touching the ground at the moment your opponent strikes the ball with the racket. Your starting position should be a neutral one. You should not be standing in the middle of the court, but slightly to the side, so that you have the best possible chance to reach serves that have been placed to the outside. The stance should be open during a forehand. That means your feet should be parallel to the ground line. Your right foot should be moved to the front during a backhand return. If you do not have enough time to change your stance during a fast first serve, then maintain your open stance. As soon as you anticipate the direction in which the ball might be struck, either to your forehand side or your backhand side, turn your upper body so that your forward shoulder is pointing toward the ball. Especially with fast serves, it is important not to take a long backswing because you have absolutely no time to do that. The racket is moved into position by a short shoulder movement. Try to avoid the long backswing used for the normal stroke. How much time you actually have is based on your opponent's serve and other factors such as the type of surface that you're playing on. As a rule, you have less time for the first serve, so take a short backswing. For the second serve, you have more time to react, and under certain conditions you can attack the ground line with your normal stroke movement. This stroke, which is the forward movement of the racket prior to the moment of impact, is initiated by the upper body rotation toward the net. A shorter, more compact upper body rotation should be used during a two-handed backhand to lead the racket toward the net. An upper body rotation toward the net is not needed when using a single-handed backhand return. The non-striking shoulder should stay behind, and the movement should come mostly out of the shoulder of the striking arm. This will enable more stability.
Wichtig ist beim
What's
ganzen
very important
Return,
throughout the
dass
whole
du immer
return
kompakt
is that you
stehst
maintain a
und
compact
dass das
position
Gewicht
so
immer
that your weight is
vorne
moving toward the
zum Ball
ball
geht, dass es
and you do
hier
not go
wirklich
into a
keine
reverse
Rücklage
pivot.
gibt.
The moment of impact should take place in front of your body. The racket should be facing the net. Your upper body and head should be in an upright position in order to maintain perfect balance.